And welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over the 5 stages of TheCopCar ownership. Alright, so there are 5 stages of TheCopCar ownership. These are going to apply primarily to an individual, not a business or a company, because a company buyer, like a cab company or a security company or a little transportation company, something like that, they don't go through these stages because most companies do things based off of their needs. They're not going to, it's unemotional. It's basically like a cost-benefit analysis kind of thing, but that's a whole nother thing. These apply to individuals. So there are 5 stages. The first stage is what I would call lust. Lust applies to pretty much anybody buying a car in general. So you're going to come to a point where you decide you're going to buy some kind of vehicle. And everybody goes through this with every vehicle you ever buy. Basically you say, I'm going to buy X vehicle for the TheCopCar buyer, or they're going to say, I'm going to buy an old cop car. You start looking for it, you start feeling good, you start getting pumped up. This is the lust stage, kind of when you're chasing your partner kind of thing, where you're like, yeah, I'm going to get this. So this kind of goes along until the point that you actually purchase the car, you're excited, you're like, man, I can't believe I'm doing this. And then this is going to roll into the second stage. And the second stage, I believe, is euphoria. Again, this also applies to most vehicles that are purchased. So euphoria is that moment when you realize that the car is yours and that this is your vehicle. Now, for a lot of people, this actually hits that first morning the following day after they get the vehicle. That first morning when you've had a nice sleep, you'll walk out in front of your house, your apartment, maybe you go down into your parking garage or wherever you keep your vehicle. And you're almost a little stunned to see what you think might be an old law enforcement vehicle, or maybe the cops are sitting there. And then you have this moment of euphoria where you go, wow, that's not a cop car, that's my car. And it's kind of a nice, strong feeling. And it doesn't matter what kind of vehicle you get, this applies to pretty much every car. Unless you're just one of these people that is just not a car person and you don't care. But for most people, this definitely has some sort of effect. And for some people, the effect is so strong that when you walk away from your car, you're the guy that's looking back at it going, man, I really like that car. And this may last for the entire time you own the vehicle. Some people never lose this euphoria if they really like the vehicle they purchased. But for most people, it kind of wears off and the novelty goes away. And for some people, it might even go away instantly. They look at it and go, oh, that's cool. And then they go, bored. And eventually what will happen is you will come into the third stage. And sometimes this stage will just kind of show itself immediately. And this is what I call the power stage. Now, the power stage is unique to former emergency services vehicles like this one. This is actually an old fire department car if you don't watch my channel. And what happens is you get behind the wheel of this vehicle and you're driving along, and you maybe come to a 4-way stop, and everybody pulls up to the stop sign. They stop, they signal their turns, they're looking really close, they hesitate to go, and you're just like, what? Because you feel like you're in driver's ed video. And this can also happen on the freeway when you're driving along and people are moving out of your way, or maybe you're in the neighborhood where the speed limit's like 15 miles an hour and suddenly everybody around you is doing 15. Now, this feeling of power is going to happen to every person that ever drives any kind of former law enforcement vehicle or something that may look like it was at some point a law enforcement vehicle. And for some people, it's like, haha, that's funny, and maybe it becomes like a troll thing where they just kind of troll people and they don't mean any harm by it, but they're not really playing cop. They think it's funny. For other people, it goes to their head. They go lose their mind and decide they're going to go be fake cop, whatever. Other people get weirded out by it and they go, you know what, I don't want anything to do with this. And some people are just completely indifferent. They just go, whatever, it's just part owning the car. So after you go from lust to euphoria through the power stage, ultimately most owners are going to go through some sort of modification phase. Now, these vehicles, when they get retired, have anything from bad paint to weird holes in them to maybe there's door molding missing, maybe there's just weird residue, maybe there's things left behind. So most people that own these cars are going to go through some sort of modification phase. And from kind of your general person that's just driving this thing as a day-to-day vehicle, they might just go through and strip off any leftover antennas. Maybe they'll take the spotlight off. For some people, it might just be, hey, I need to take this thing down to Mako and paint it because the paint's flaking off, or maybe it's illegal to have a black and white car, California. But most people will go through some sort of modification phase. And for different people, this will mean different things. If you went through the power phase and you were just really weirded out by the whole thing, you're probably going to do something to make your car either one, look very civilian, like you might even try to make it look like a Grand Marquis, or just a very civilianized Crown Vic. Basically, you'll pull the spotlight off, you'll plug any kind of antenna holes. If that's a push bumper, you're going to get that thing off of there. Or what you may end up doing is you may just go completely crazy and just say, you know what, I'm going to just turn this thing into something completely different. There are people out there that turn these things into campers. They will hack the top off of them and turn them into a convertible, like Vehicle Virgins did. There are people out there that will do like an off-road type Crown Victoria, like an apocalypse type theme with a roof rack and all this other fun stuff going on. There are other people out there that are going to put giant rims on the thing, big, 22-inch wheels and lift it up. I've heard those referred to as donks, but there are people out there that say that donks are only Chevrolets, and you'll start a whole war if you call Crown Victoria a donk, with people that actually understand that culture. I obviously do not. And heck, even Rob Ferretti has, I guess, one of these big goofy cars with the giant wheels on it, lifted up sky high. And that is one of the styles. Now, the polar opposite of that is you've got some people like me that are just kind of like the look of the vehicle. I don't really drive it a whole lot, so it's not like I'm really going out here bothering anybody with it. Maybe I put 100 miles on it. That are just going to kind of leave it alone a little bit, but maybe tweak it a little bit here and there. I found my push bumper and decided to throw it on there just because I thought it would be kind of fun to make a video about it. There are other people that this starts going to their head a little bit, and they start thinking, man, I'm going to do roadside assistance, and they'll start adding on all these lights and start pretending that they're going to do all this other stuff. Or they'll say, I'm going to do neighborhood watch, or some of this other stuff. And then there's some people that are going to legitimately put some lights on there, like your security companies, or people that do like escort vehicles like flag cars. And those people aren't really going to harm anybody, but there are some others out there that are going to go a little crazy, and they're going to start putting red and blue lights on there. They're going to put sirens on there. And depending on what your angle is on the vehicle, I don't personally have a big problem with this, depending on how you're using it. If you're going out and actually turning those lights on the street, that's not good. Kind of a quick story. There was an Orange County sheriff's vehicle that was, I don't know if it was parked somewhere, it was unattended somewhere. Anyway, somebody stole it, and they actually went out and started initiating traffic stops with the vehicle. And they were able to, I guess, stop a couple of vehicles, but at some point they actually attempted a traffic stop on a stolen car, and that car fled. And I think it may have crashed, I don't remember, but basically what ended up happening was the guy that stole the Orange County Sheriff's vehicle didn't really know what to do, so he freaked out and abandoned the thing. And then the person that was running from him, I guess, went and, I don't remember if they crashed the car or what, but they also took off. And that's kind of my point, is that if you're going to go out and do that kind of stuff, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. And that's why law enforcement officers go through an academy, blah, 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 blah. And then there's some people that do just like the cop look, but the problem is that, depending on how far down the spectrum you go, there are other people on the internet that are going to make fun of you, call you a whacker and all this other stuff. So in this modification stage, you have this whole realm of just people going in all these different directions, which kind of makes these cars pretty unique. And you don't really see that with any other type of vehicle. You just got this huge range of just things that people do with them. And this ultimately leads to the final stage. And sometimes people back into some of these other stages too. The final stage is what I would call kind of almost like a boredom or an indifference stage. This is the point when the vehicle, you either get bored with the style that you went with, May it be the cop look or, you know, full whacker mode, whatever you guys want to call it, because I know there's some trolls out there that just cannot stand the cop look, and there's other people who love the cop look, and maybe you decided not to go to the cop look. But my point is you come to a point where you're kind of just bored with it, and a couple things may happen here. You will either just continue rolling along with whatever you have there until you get to a point where the car is no longer any good, or you need to sell it and you get rid of it and you move on to something else, or you will revert back into the modification phase, and this is where some interesting things happen. I've actually seen Crown Vics go from, I guess, cop look to zombie car, because what happens is, you know, somebody will do like the cop look, and then people will start really messing with them over it because they go, dude, why are you doing this? This is silly. So they'll go, you know what, I'm going to go with a zombie, you know, a zombie car, and then now they've got all these lights, but instead of, you know, looking like a cop, it like says zombie patrol on the side or something like that. So you get these interesting kind of evolutions of the vehicle as time goes on. And this is evident in pretty much every Crown Victoria or, you know, ex-CopCar type ownership thing that I've seen on pretty much everybody's YouTube, where these things pop up and show themselves. You know, I've seen, there was, I'm trying to think of some of the channels that are out there. I mean, like, you know, Parker with Vehicle Virgins went through and he threw a little, you know, amber light, and I mean, he went through all 5 stages like pretty dramatically quick. You know, he went from the, wow, this is really neat, you know, kind of lusting after it, to, wow, Euphoria, to, hey, let's throw some lights on it and, you know, act like a cop for a little bit, to, let's hack the roof off. And he lobbed the roof off, and he said, I'm kind of bored with this. Let's throw some nitrous in it and blow the motor up. So he went through all the stages in, like, I don't know, a couple of videos or something. And many people do this. And ultimately what ends up happening is it gets to a point where you're kind of indifferent to the vehicle, and you either just continue driving it like it's just a regular car, or you use it as a collector piece. I mean, there's some people out there that legitimately have some very old, almost like museum quality police vehicles that they've just kind of hidden away from the world, and yeah, they don't drive them. They're just kind of collectors, I guess you could say, kind of like Jay Leno has a whole pile of CHP cars. So I guess what I'm getting at is there's about 5 stages, and some of them are unique to the former law enforcement vehicles, but Lust, Euphoria, the power phase, which comes with these vehicles only, Modification, which pretty much everybody has to do, and then kind of that Indifference phase where it just becomes another car. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Does that seem like a fair evaluation? Did I miss any stages of ownership there? But I'd like to hear your thoughts. I mean, to me, that's kind of what I've seen. I've seen a lot of different people go through all these phases, and ultimately, for most people, once they get to that indifferent stage, it just becomes another car, and sometimes they go buy another one when they kill the first one, because these cars are pretty cheap. I mean, the price is starting to go up on these things, but here around here, you can pick them up for about $1,800 at the auction, roughly, plus or minus $500, depending on if it's got nice paint, if it's ugly, whatever. But relatively cheap cars, they're pretty indestructible, and when you do tear them up, there's, I don't know, like 1 million of these things out there floating around, so parts are easy to come by. Anyway, thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for stopping by. Love to each and every one of you, and I'll catch you on the next video. Did I really just film a video sitting on a rare push bumper? Yes, I did.